three of them all together.
In 1997, thousands of eyewitnesses watched in awe as a boomerang-shaped formation of lights cruised slowly and silently over the city of Phoenix.
They're lined up in a pattern.
Witnesses first thought these were separate lights flying in formation, but quickly realized the lights were all part of a single gigantic something. Military officials were asked about the Phoenix lights, but said they hadn't seen anything. Months later, they explained that a National Guard unit had been training with flares near the city. Flares over Phoenix look like this, not like this. The public, in general, didn't buy it. 8 years earlier, the airspace over Belgium was repeatedly violated by huge, unidentified black triangles. 10,000 witnesses saw them. Several were photographed. The Belgian Air Force dispatched F-16s to intercept and destroy the unknown intruders, but the triangles performed maneuvers that seemed virtually impossible.
On several occasions, they launched the top-of-the-line military aircraft against these things, and they were left standing. They were left in the dust. 1 minute these things are overhead, and the next minute they're on the horizon.
Dr. Colm Kelleher is a research scientist who spent several years with the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS, a private Las Vegas science organization. A 4-year NIDS study of the mystery triangles has found that these craft have been seen for decades all over the world. In the early 80s, there were hundreds of nighttime sightings in rural New York. Belgium was inundated in the late 80s, but more recently, the mystery triangles have really come out of the closet and have been seen in every state, including Nevada, flying low and slow over cities.
These things are huge. These things are football field size. Sometimes they're stealthy, but a lot of the times they're flying with extremely bright lights. They're always silent.
NIDS now has a database of more than 1,000 black triangle reports, 17 of them from Nevada. The witnesses often say the craft seem to float like a blimp or airship, but they're also capable of aeronautical magic.
They were able to drop altitude in terms of 10, 20,000 feet in a matter of seconds. They were able to go from a hovering position to several thousand miles an hour, and this was caught on radar.
Then it was heading straight north.
Las Vegas journalist Caitlin White was in the backyard of her southeast Las Vegas home last year when she saw a dark behemoth fly over. She drew this picture.
It was triangular shaped, and there were rectangular reflectors. There was no interior light coming out of it at all. And by the time it got out of sight, I bet it was 5 to 8 minutes. It was really slow, and I couldn't figure out how it was staying in the air.
White called the police, who connected her to Nellis Air Force Base, which is the direction the triangle seemed headed.
The man said, I don't want you to talk about this anymore. You're not going to talk about this anymore, and you're going to forget it. And once again, I said, look, Betty, I'm not drinking. I'm not on drugs. Something is headed for your base. And then he got really terse, and he said, ma'am, I'm going to tell you one more time, and this is the last time I'm going to tell you. You will forget what you saw, and you won't tell anybody. And at that point, I was freaked. I didn't know what to do.
The frequent proximity of triangle sightings to Air Force bases led NIDS to conclude 2 years ago that the craft must be part of a secret military project. But in the 2 years since, the triangles have become so prevalent over big cities and interstate highways that the theory doesn't fit anymore.
Why would unacknowledged aircraft be flying at 500 to 1,000 feet over populated areas? If you look at the B-2 and the F-117, prior to their being acknowledged, there was absolutely no sense of them flying over populated areas.
So just what might the triangles be up to?
On November the 10th of 1994, a Claremont County resident recorded several minutes of home video footage showing an object comprised of 4 headlights in a triangular arrangement.
Boy, you're bright now.
The soundless object seems to demonstrate a rolling motion that would appear to place a conventional aircraft in an upside-down inverted pitch at the conclusion of the maneuver. The videotape and the claim was thoroughly investigated, and others in the same area also told of similar occurrences in the weeks before and after the recording was made.
Boy, you're bright now.
The mysterious object was picked up on the home video camera after witnesses described hearing explosive sounds.
I was in bed, sound asleep, and all of a sudden I heard some booming sounds. And I got up and I came out and asked my son, what all the noise was. He said, Mom, I don't know. So I opened up the door to look outside, and there were so many intense lights that it was something. So I started yelling, oh my God, where's my camera? I videotaped the lights going across and over top of the field across the street. They were just on the other side of the dumpster here. They were very low. Some of them were coming in one direction and would stop and go back in the opposite direction. Some of them would stop in midair, and there would be like 2 of them at a time over top of each other, and they would both separate and go in opposite directions.
This is the video Barb recorded on November the 10th from 1994.
Boy, you're bright now.
Barb also recorded videotape of an actual airplane traveling overhead. Comparing this video with the one of the object that Barb says is weird gives us the impression that the aircraft engine noise from the plane can be heard very clearly, and the unidentified object seems to make no sound at all.
Boy, you're bright now.
November 10th was a strange night in Owensville. Along with Barb and her videotape, there were quite a few others who told of eerie glowing lights that zipped about on that rainy night. Some did not want to appear on camera. One resident, Larry Moore, says he does not know Barb and has no knowledge of her videotape, but he saw something that he could not identify.
Okay, what I seen was a light coming through the trees, and it was coming at a pretty rapid speed, between 50 and 60 miles an hour. And the light was unusual to be as low as it was. It was kind of eerie looking, you know, just seeing it like that. But you know, it wasn't a plane that low or something that low like that. It's something I've never seen before. But when it came so fast like that, it just suddenly stopped. And it was about like 30 foot above the trees. And it was just a big bright light, like it had some kind of a glow to it. But I couldn't figure out what it was.
As I was standing there watching the lights, all of a sudden I noticed that there was a sheriff right there in the front of my house.
Oh boy, he's speeding up now. Did you see him? You saw it right here. Listen to him. I bet somebody called.
There was a very intense light on the other, behind the dumpster. The sheriff must have noticed it because at that time he sped up very noticeably in his car. I followed him as far as I could with the video camera over to the church where he sat and watched the lights also.
There goes the sheriff. After sitting here for a few minutes. And here he's facing one. How about that? Got sheriff sitting right under one.
And they sit there. They're having like a stare down face off for a couple minutes. And the light is just sitting motionlessly up in the sky. There's no sound. Then all of a sudden the light pulls to the right. The sheriff's taillights change again. And he pulls up and pulls to the right as if he's following it.
What happened that night? An attempt was made to locate the officer who was on the video.
Sheriff's gonna follow him. Yep. Ooh, there he goes, chasing him.
But our efforts were futile. We spoke with Lieutenant Wilson of the Claremont County Sheriff's Department, who said he checked into it, and he told us that he had no information and no reports were made. Lights in the night sky don't impress me, he said, and that our job is protecting people. As long as one of these bad boys don't hurt anyone, it's not our concern. When asked to make an on-camera comment about the videotape, Claremont County Sheriff John Van Camp abruptly stepped in and curtly said, "Go find someplace else to film." The Owensville recording was taken to Associates for Scientific Knowledge investigator and computer specialist Dale Farmer for comprehensive examination.
Right now I kind of think it's probably man-made, probably some kind of experimental aircraft that the Air Force or Navy is experimenting with.
Most notable through computer enhancement is the appearance of a structured surface behind the large aircraft headlights. Extensive computer analysis has detailed a possible triangular outline of what may be a solid structure connecting the lights. Further complicating the circumstances surrounding the Claremont County recording, another videotape of a similar object was recorded several months later near Marysville, Ohio. This video recording was made by a news crew from a Columbus, Ohio television station while producing a story on UFO sightings in that area. Like the Claremont County recording, this videotape, shot by the staff of a Columbus, Ohio news station, also shows an object comprised of big, bright headlights in a triangular shape. Unknown triangular-shaped objects have been reported in all parts of the world. This object, similar in appearance to the Claremont County recording, was photographed over Belgium. This videotape was taken in 1981 over the Soviet Union. Compare the similarities. Are these secretive military aircrafts? And if so, why are they parading about residential areas, performing odd maneuvers, and shining brilliant headlight beams for all to see?
На поверхность Земли и на растения. Это событие совершенно уникальное, но оно имело продолжение. Над Самарой очевидцы наблюдали аналог этого объекта. Вот такой треугольный предмет с огнями и с такими импульсами, выражающими движение. Далее домашняя хозяйка наблюдала вот такой объект из окна своего дома. Это над городом Самарой, над крупнейшим населенным промышленным центром.
Incredibly, in 1990, one of these UFOs reportedly attacked a radar antenna near the Soviet city of Samara. It was one of the most shocking UFO military confrontations on record.
A triangular-shaped object flew near a military base in Samara and then landed right next to a mobile air defense radar unit. Apparently the radar unit's turn to pick up, this UFO. The UFO shot a beam at the radar and basically destroyed completely that radar unit.
The Samara incident was witnessed by a Soviet officer named Rudzit. In this newly released Russian documentary, Rudzit's face is hidden because at the time of the interview he feared he'd be court-martialed for speaking publicly.
I saw with my own eyes the antenna destroyed by an explosion. It was due to a very strong blow from without. I saw burnt paint and melted metal parts of the antenna and also reduction gears scattered all around.
This happened in December 28, 1988 at 7:45 p.m. The people of the area of Cabo Rojo and Lajas, two towns to the southwest of the island, that night saw a very huge ball of blue light, as we see here in the drawing, that was flying over the Sierra Bermeja Mountains, a small ridge there where many of these incidents have been happening in Puerto Rico. And then this ball of light changed, and it changed to another color, to a huge ball of yellowish light, and the witnesses all could see that this was part of a triangular craft, very big in size, and this yellow light was underneath the object. It was a almost semicircular, something like a bulge or a ball of yellow light, very bright, and the two jet fighters were trying to intercept it, and in 3 different occasions made it veer away and change its trajectory, its direction. In the third occasion, the object stopped in midair. One of the jet fighters seemed to, as if it was going to collide with the object by the back of it. And the people began screaming because they believed there was going to be a collision and an explosion and something terrible might happen. But what happened was that the jet fighter just disappeared, vanished in midair, next to the UFO. The other jet fighter kept flying next to it by the right side of it, and then all of a sudden it also disappeared. It vanished. The UFO then came back again, turned around, flew over an area known there as the Samara Lake. It's a small pond surrounded by many palm trees. And over these palm trees, I would say about an altitude of 100 feet from the palm trees, it divided itself, this huge triangular object, into 2 different objects. It split with a luminous explosion, a soundless explosion of very bright light. And both parts of the craft, one flew very fast to the north and one flew very fast to the east and disappeared. There were other witnesses that say that there was a third jet fighter that was checking on the situation from a distance. But when that pilot of that third jet fighter saw what happened, apparently he tried to flee the area, and 3 small balls of red light came out from the UFO and began chasing it, and they disappeared to the north. They don't know what happened to this third jet fighter.
How many witnesses followed this event?
Up to now, more than 100 witnesses.
What are your conclusions?
Well, this incident did occur. It's a very important one. When you have more than 100 witnesses that describe the same scene to you, they make the same drawings to you what they saw. All the details fit with all the descriptions, and we have other information due to the investigation we made. For example, that this jet craft must have been from the Navy of the United States, because that day the Puerto Rico Air National Guard had no airplanes or any air practices in the area, and Roosevelt Road Naval Station in Ceiba, the principal base in the Caribbean from the U.S., did have some air practices that night and personnel in the area, even though they denied it. But the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration in San Juan, confirmed to us that there were practices from Roosevelt Road Naval Station there.
I'd never really seen anything like it in my life. I thought, could it be a plane? Could it be this? Could it be that? But it was just nothing like I'd ever seen before, and it was so quiet. That was the main thing I couldn't understand. It was so big and yet so quiet.
Some of them are 3 times the size of a jumbo jet. In fact, one local witness said that it was so big it wouldn't have landed on Derby football ground.
The men from outer space now apparently travel to Earth in triangular-shaped ships. These images were drawn from eyewitness accounts. This amateur footage was captured at Mansfield. The bright light circle shows a spaceship hovering over the town, according to those who shot it.
Isn't it speeding? Look at that!
They said it too was triangular. It's used as further evidence of aliens.
I can't see how the government can keep the lid on the thing for much longer, because just the man in the street is now becoming aware that something very, very strange is happening.
Now, what is it about the triangles that you feel is so significant, or is this just a part of the whole big picture here?
Well, you're right on both accounts. Number one, it's part of the big picture, but it also involves an object the size of a football field that can hover, or what's described as from witnesses as floating, which is unusual to describe a mechanical craft, that can accelerate rapidly, attain high speeds, that's virtually noiseless, that has orbs around the sides that detach and attach. I think that since this object is being seen in populated areas over the last 20 years, not only in this country, but in England and in Belgium and other countries, I think it's time we found out about it And what's more significant is that when we inquired of this object from the Department of Defense, they told us they conducted a reasonable search and can find no information on this object. As far as I'm concerned, they're lying to us. It can't be possible because they searched the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency and they had no information. They searched the Joint Chiefs of Staff and they had no information. And the Department of Defense is charged with gathering intelligence and providing security for the citizens of this country. So how can they not know about an object that's seen at treetop level in populated areas over major cities in this age of terrorism? Well, the Department of Defense, for whatever reason, has not come to the courtroom, has not sent any attorneys. They are represented by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And they just toe the party line. They treat this as any other Freedom of Information request. The agency does the search. If they don't find documents, they move to dismiss it on the grounds a reasonable search was done. If they find documents, they either release them or withhold them on national security grounds. And that's what I thought this case would be about. The Department of Defense would find documents and say national security, as they did in the other cases cause brought, and that would be the end of it. No judge has gone against that ruling. But they didn't. They stated they found no documents. They did a reasonable search. So the U.S. Attorney is just putting forward that position that they didn't have to do an exhaustive search. All they had to do is a reasonable search. They did a reasonable search. There are no documents. What we submitted, what Citizens Against UFO Secrecy submitted, was 33 affidavits from people that actually saw the object, were willing to come forward, put it down on paper, and then swear to the contents. So we submitted this to the judge, said, Judge, look, this object exists, Judge. It exists not only over the last 20 years, but it was seen last month. You know, so how can they not have information? How can they have done a reasonable search and not found anything? And the judge was convinced that at least at this level they have to provide us with more information telling us about their search.
The obvious question then arises, where are we going with this now? Where does Peter Gersten and Citizens Against UFO Secrecy hope to take this now? What's the next step?
We hope to go where no group has gone before. We hope to go into the darkest recesses of these governmental agencies to search for the truth and to end the secrecy.